And we are live here on RELICS Radio. Hey, everyone. DK here from Adventures in Dirt, but also one of your hosts here at RELICS Radio. I'm joined tonight by my buddy, Tony. How you doing, Tony?
Buenos dias, sir. How are you?
I'm doing good. It's Thursday night. Beautiful weather today. Nice and
Oh
clear
my
out.
gosh.
Love it.
For even considering that we're, still in winter or early spring or, however the groundhog determines it, talk about some incredible weather tonight or today, this whole week, really.
It was pretty good, man.
We're starting to melt all the snow off and I think the ground might even take a spade or two, huh?
Yeah, maybe. I don't know. Let's try to find out. I know. I'm excited. I think we have some detecting to get to this weekend.
Some stuff lined up, right?
Yeah.
Hey,
I'm excited.
We're not just podcast hosts. We actually do get dirty sometimes as well. Believe it or not.
Not often enough, I'll tell you.
No, not enough. Yeah.
How's your week been? We took last week off.
We did. Let's see. We had Gypsy on, and then which was a fantastic, fun show. Tons of information. That lady is busy. I tell you what, she has got so many irons in the fire, and she was a great guest, and we had a great time with her, of course.
Yeah, it was. If you missed that show, head on back. You can go back and catch that amongst other past shows. Just look down, and man, we have shows going all the way back to season 1. We're in season 7 right now.
What?
But we have weekly shows going all the way back to season 1, back in 2017, I think it was. And wow, there's just tons of great interviews to listen to back from the days of Loy and Tennessee Jeff and Digging with Seven. You got to go over and check it out. But yeah, Gypsy was great. That last show was fun. I mean,
Yep.
Nick West was fun. Like
we've had a good
Dave Rose.
season.
Yeah, we have. And we got a lot of good guests. We got people showing up in the chat. I've seen a lot of familiar faces. And even somebody I haven't seen in quite a while. Who are you seeing?
Yeah, coming in strong. Mr. Bill Hayes always first in the chat.
What's up, Bill?
Welcome on, Bill. Mr. Dave Full Metal Digger Rose, who's been a guest here recently this season already, but always in the chat with us. Great guy. Robert Thompson.
Hello, Robert.
Saying howdy.
Right.
The other Bill, Ohio Relic Hunter.
Two Bills are always better than
Bills.
one. Sometimes.
That's right. Let's
trying
see who
to
else
get money
we got.
from you. Yeah, Lewis Bean, all the way from Vancouver Island, British Columbia.
There we go. International show tonight.
Yep. James Offar, how you doing, buddy? And then Earl from Virginia. Man,
There we
I have
go.
not seen that name for quite a while. Good to see you, Earl. Thanks for showing up here to Relics Radio in our live chat room. We also call it the comment section. Who do we miss?
We missed Adam Zajac.
Oh, how could we miss him?
The Niffler. Sorry.
The Niffler. He sent both Tony and I some stickers.
We got some swag.
And there's some swag in there. It was pretty cool. And a little jingle, a little bling. It was
yes, thank you very much.
It was very nice. Thank you, Adam, very much. And it's being returned for sure. Keep an eye out on that mailbox for sure.
I have them sitting right here on my desk.
Yeah, me too. They just need to get in an envelope and get on the
I know.
Barb, Dirt Pirate is in the chat. Good to see you, Barb. Who else we got?
Heavy Metal Detectors from Facebook.
Yep. What's up, Heavy Metal Detectors? Finding America, Greg. Good to see you. Thanks for showing up. Yeah, welcome everybody.
Showing up, man.
Right.
Going well.
What's everyone digging out there? Let me know in the comment section there. What's your latest favorite find or your latest? Hey, check it out. I finally found a seeded coin finally here in Colorado. So that's cool. And I actually found 2 of them the day I found them. So that's always cool. But yeah, let us know your most recent favorite find. That'd be great. Tony, how about your week? Your week's been pretty good so far?
Yeah.
Has the dust cleared since we've been out detecting last time?
I think so. I you know what? I'm glad you mentioned it because I did want to congratulate you. It is a pretty big deal out west here to find a seeded coin. Unfortunately, we weren't together when I found my first seeded coin. But I was blessed to be with you to find your first one and second one this time. And I tell you, you knocked it out of the park. You got a half dime first and then a regular dime second, and both of them just being a little squeaker. I mean, you had to work for it.
Yeah, really deep, 8.5 inches. And that half dime, man, was so thin and so small. But I was able to use that Deus too, man, and pick that
I
thing
was gonna,
out. I was still learning that machine, and it was once I found that first one, then I knew what it sounded
yeah.
like in that soil, in that place we were at. And so then it was just like, oh yeah, I'm not ignoring those anymore. Like I know what it sounds like now, and that's how I was able to find that second one. But yeah,
You did great.
1841 seated halftime and 1883 seated dime. And if you haven't seen the videos, head on over to Tony's YouTube channel, 5280 Adventures. There's also another video of that day over on metal detecting NOCO, Northern Colorado, metal detecting NOCO with Michael over there. And you can check out that epic day that everyone had, not only me, but Tony, you found an amazing item over there. That token was incredible. And who can forget the seated quarter that Jeff pulled up on that
What
same
a
site?
day.
Yeah, it was
What a
shield
day.
nickels, all 1860s shield nickels, and for Colorado, man, that's pretty good. That's
That's
pretty
about
good.
as early as you can find in Colorado. You're not going to
Right,
find much earlier than the site that we were even on. You're not going to find much earlier as well.
right.
So
Yeah, it was
great,
great.
just a great site, and I think we might be going back that direction soon.
Yeah,
So
I think
always,
so.
always stay tuned to our YouTube channels, Adventures in Dirt and 5280 Adventures. We're going to have all kinds of videos, even Facebook, Instagram, all that kind of stuff. We've got all of our finds on that kind of stuff and sharing it. So we'd love for you guys to come along, share that
Yeah,
with us as well.
yeah. Dave Mon. Sorry about that. Dave says hello from Gettysburg, Pennsylvania. How you doing, Dave?
Ooh,
Welcome to the
nice.
show. Welcome to the show. Hey, let's bring our guest on, man. I've been looking forward to talking with BuckleBoy for a long time. Real quick, Patty Clodfelter just came in and said, hello, BuckleBoy and everyone. This is Dirt Clod Metal Detecting.
Nice.
What's up, Patty? All right. Yeah,
All
let's
right.
bring
Well,
BuckleBoy on.
yeah, we've been waiting a while. Schedule's finally synced up, and we've got BuckleBoy. You guys know him on YouTube. He's on Facebook. Frequents our chat on our live podcast here, very very often, and just an incredible contributor and all around detectorist for everything. So impressed by this gentleman, and we're so happy to have BuckleBoy on RELICS Radio. Thanks for coming on, BuckleBoy.
What's up, BuckleBoy?
Hey, everybody. Thanks so much for having me, Ken, Tony. Yeah, I
Yeah,
appreciate it.
Of
we're
course.
glad you could give us some of your time. Yeah, man. We've watch your stuff all the time on your YouTube channel and your Facebook page and all the amazing things you seem to find right out there, right on top of the ground a lot of times. And we're going to get to talking about that. But you're also a great supporter here of Relics Radio, and you show up quite a bit in the chat and interact with the folks there. And you're just an important part of our community, and so we're always excited to talk to people that contribute to the community and definitely someone I consider a friend. So thanks for coming on with us.
Yeah, thank you all. I love your show, and I love what you all do. And it's nice to be in the chat, and it's also nice to be here as the guest. But it sounds like we've got some, an all-star chat going here today. So that's really cool, too.
Yeah, did you hear some of those names? Man, they're all showing up.
Yeah, they are.
Oh, yeah.
Yep.
Oh, yeah.
It's
Great
rolling.
folks.
It sure is.
It's
Excellent.
rolling.
So, hey, first of all, people might not know, you're in Hawaii, right?
Oh, yeah. Hawaii. Totally.
Something like
Yeah.
that.
I mean, yeah, I mean, there is water all around, but it's not Hawaii.
Good one.
Oh, there you go.
But yeah, it's I live in Louisiana and do all my digging here. Sometimes I drive to surrounding states just depending on what I've got cooking and where my research is. But most of it's right here in the state, and so lived here for a good while. And I'll tell you, it's a fun place to do the hobby, and there's no shortage of stuff to find. But you do have to work for it, just like anywhere else.
Yeah, if anybody follows you, I mean, they can tell you definitely you're a target-rich environment for sure. And why don't you tell us how long you've been, metal detecting, relic hunting, doing all that kind of stuff?
Well, I started when I was really young. I mean, I was probably like, I don't know, maybe 6 or 7 years old with a little crappy detector, but I don't really count that. I count when I first got my serious, first detector. And so I've been digging now since 1991. So I guess 33 years, which is, a lot of holes in the ground.
Yeah.
And I dug in a lot of states. I moved around some before I ended up in Louisiana. So that's been interesting to see and witness, and it's kind of given me a lot of perspective about the types of things that I find and where things are found. So
has
so that's pretty
Louisiana been
cool.
one of your more enjoyable places to detect of all the places you've detected?
Oh, definitely. I mean, it's weird because it's like, some of the relationships I had with property owners in places where there were fences everywhere. A lot of the land here is like big agribusiness and stuff like that, and it's unfenced, and it's crop fields or cow pastures, running cattle and stuff, and depending on which part of the state you're in, or it's swampy, and so I don't know, there's something nice about the wide open spaces of it. Kind of like reminds me of the beach, but it's like old stuff, but it's weird because sometimes I'll go out and I won't run into a property owner, for a while. But I miss kind of that experience of having a real relationship with property owners, in other places that I've lived. So that's kind of different. But yeah, it's definitely a nice experience. It feels pretty free and relaxing, which is kind of, up my alley, except for the 100-degree heat in the summer.
Oh, you don't have heat. Come on, man.
It's not
Louisiana's right
muggy
by
and
the water.
humid.
It can't get
Yeah,
hot.
and you all don't have snow, right?
There you go.
Right.
Touche.
Yeah. Okay. We got you.
Yeah.
So you were
But
talking,
I've mellowed out a little bit. I can't get out and that stuff. As I'm getting older, I'm like, I don't want to do it. It's like you got to draw the line somewhere. And I remember one time, it was the hottest I was ever out metal detecting. I started getting, a little dizzy and lightheaded, and I took out my phone and looked at the temperature, and it said feels like temperature 127.
Oh my gosh.
And so I said, I'm done. I screenshotted it because I was like, I think I'm hallucinating. And I stared at it later and it didn't change. It feels like 127. I was like, I'm out of here. There's no relic in the ground that's worth getting sick over. So.
Wow.
Yep.
Wow.
Oh, that's hot,
wild,
man. I know that Tony and I once dug out in the middle at Julesburg when we were helping that archaeologist kind of document that Indian battle out there. And it was like 113. Remember that? And you and I both were getting dizzy and just getting taken out. And I couldn't tell you what the feels like was, but there was no shade. There was no, right? We're out in the middle of nowhere, open prairie.
You're on the plains.
Yeah.
Wow.
That's hottest I think I've ever detected right then.
Yeah, it's probably comparable. Yeah.
Yeah. Man. But, it sure seems like you've been very successful. I know you said you work at it, and you do. Walking around there, I know I've seen some of the areas you've kind of detected in, at least some photos and stuff. And, it's not all flat ground a lot of times. There's like little berms, little bumps, and a lot of up and down. And, some of those cane fields and stuff, it kind of looks like it would be very difficult traversing all that. Have you ever twisted your ankle on any of those?
I have, and especially in the mud. Things get really slippery, and all of the ground is uneven, and it's depending on what part of the state you're in. A lot of, at least the south part of the state, there's not a lot of rocks anywhere, and so it's just all fine silt. So that stuff it really like gloms onto your shoes, and it also makes it very hard to dig. Walking around. So it's you got to be really steady on your feet to get in that stuff, and unless the weather's just right. I tend to try to go out, whenever I get a good spot or get a good lead on a good spot or get a good permission. I tend to try to go after it. I've learned over the years that if I don't do it, it's not going to get done. If I don't strike while the iron's hot, if I don't go for it after I talk to the property owner, I'm probably not going to go. So. I've missed out on so many great sites. I look back and looked at the spots that I had permission for, that other people found great stuff. And, after I didn't go, and even check it out. So I don't know. I've just learned that you got to get out there and do it. And I think that part of that's psychological. I think a lot of people, enjoy getting permissions or are afraid to get permission sometimes. And it seems like they don't want to do that part of the hobby, but it's all, the research and the permission getting and all of that stuff is wrapped up together. And, I've been real lucky down here. I have a lot of acreage of permissions. And so it's a pretty vast area of active permissions, but I probably spend most of my time, I probably spend about half of my time reading books and about half of my time out digging. So I think that's a pretty good mix to find something good, no matter where you are.
Yeah,
you do a lot of research. Are all your books on history and local lore, local happenings, or do you enjoy other types of reading as well?
Some of them. I don't really go after a lot of the like novels and things like that. If it's not related to metal detecting or history or relics, and I'm not really as interested. Local history books, Louisiana history books. I did the same thing when I lived in other states. So I have a big reference library that's like a room worth. I don't even want to think about the amount I've spent on books over the years, but and I can't say no to a book. It's like I just saw this book on trunks, and I've been looking to try to add it to my collection, and it was like trunks from 1700 to 1930, and I'm like, okay, well, I really want to know about trunks, and so I was like looking for it, and how when something's out of print, the cost just goes astronomically high. And so I found finally a copy with like $35. And I was like, oh, there it is. I got to have that book on trunks. So, it's just a weakness of mine. But I spend a lot of time, reading books on relics and from a collector's point of view and doing a lot of research. And part of that includes like diaries and old farmers' atlases, I guess you would say they would be called, and business directories, looking up where businesses were located and things like that. So I mean, there's a lot of time, and it's basically endless. You're never going to know it all.
Does Louisiana have a good newspaper archive?
There are some, but you have to be almost like you've got to try to get in good with a university or something in order to get it. And some of that stuff, it's like hard to access some of it, but it's there's a lot of it there. You just have to know where to look. And some of it is in like major cities and the historic New Orleans collection and things like that. I mean, you could spend days there just going through. I mean, their collection's massive. But then a lot of it's in small towns, believe it or not, as well. And then, there's all the local history that people will tell you. Some of it true, some of it not, when you start to talk to folks. One of the weird things is, like, as I've gotten older, I realize that, one of these days I'm going to be the old timer and nobody's going to tell me something probably that I don't already know about their property.
Yeah.
But it's nice to still have folks who are much older than me, that will stop by and tell me stuff that I didn't know.
Yeah, I wanted to ask you. Well, first, I wanted to say, I would absolutely consider you a successful treasure hunter, whether it's detecting or eyeballing or whatever. But you're absolutely successful at it. You're in your searching for all these things. Are you more towards the private permission side? Are you more towards local public lands, or where are you kind of focusing on the most for how you're being so successful?
It's kind of all over the place, but I would say the vast majority of it's private permissions.
Sure.
I mean, there are people here in the state that like to, I guess they just like to kind of show up and dig in places without asking. Right. And I've run into folks like that, out scouting and so forth, that have just stopped and gotten the detector out and said, "Do you mind if I dig with you?" And I'm like, "Who have you talked to?" And
they're
really?
Like,
nobody.
Wow.
Nobody. And I'm like, okay. that's kind of weird. But I think because it's so open and because it's like big agribusinesses, a lot of it, and a lot of them are really averse to letting anybody in there, because of liability issues. So you have to know how to navigate that stuff. If you're going to write a contract, you got to know how to write a contract and make sure that you waive liability for them.
Sure.
If you get injured or twist your ankle or whatever. And then a lot of it is, just knowing how to approach people and, knowing what to say and how to come across and to make good relationships. And, I think that type of stuff has allowed me to have almost 80,000 acres of active permissions.
80,000 acres. Let that sit in, Tony.
Yeah.
Let that sink in. Oh my gosh.
So he's essentially metal detecting Rhode Island. Got it.
You know what I call him? My new best friend. He's my new best friend.
I know. Absolutely.
Oh, that's a lot of land, bud. Congratulations.
A lot of it is, you get a big agribusiness or two, and there's tons of acreage there, and that's how it all adds up. It's that a lot of the folks who farm and the businesses who oversee things, they're not small, and so you just have to know who to talk to and how to get in there. And like I say, I believe in doing things above board. Even though I see people that like to kind of poach spots and so forth, I think that type of thing will ruin it eventually for everyone if that goes on much here. But you just have to be willing to go out there and put the time in and track owners down and to know how to ask. And that's a part of this hobby, and that's as important as anything else, because it doesn't matter how much research you do if you don't get permission to dig.
Right.
There you go.
That's one of the things I always say when we're leaving a permission and we go back and we speak, we kind of, circle back with the landowner, kind of show them the things we found, offer it to them, talk more about history, what we find and figured out about their properties. I absolutely make it a point to make sure to thank them specifically, that without their permissions and their kindness, we can't enjoy this hobby. And, I'm just so thankful for their, just being outstanding, just really cool people. Most of the time they are. And, they enjoy that too. Without them, man, we're all hunting the same public fields.
Right.
Yeah. Everything we do is at the grace and pleasure of other people. Yep. So it's kind of hard to have an attitude and be arrogant and,
right.
so forth, considering that,
Yeah. And do you find when you're on one permission, like especially if you get into some of these small towns, like how often does that lead into another permission? You know what I mean? Like, 'cause a lot of those farmers will talk, a lot of those ranchers and neighbors will get together and, hey, who's that guy that's out there? So do you find that, or are they too far apart and spread out in your area? Oh yeah.
Very often. And, some of those spots are spots that I, don't know anything about because I haven't researched the neighbor's land at all, or some of those spots are spots where I'm like, there might be something there. Usually when I get into an area, I'm after something specific. I'm after some sort of a site, and I know a good bit about it and that's led me there. But, it's just like, as they say down here, lanyap, which is like the extra little bit of stuff that you didn't plan on and probably don't deserve, if you get a neighbor or so forth.
Yeah.
And, sometimes it's nice to just focus in and try to meet all the neighbors. And then everybody around there knows who you are and drives by and says hi and says, oh, you should go check out this or that, or thinks of something and wants to give the information to you. So you get into some hyper local history that way, which is pretty cool. So not all of it is, going after big sites. Some of it is just a little bit of the luck of the draw, and some of it is just making good relationships with neighboring properties. So that's pretty neat.
It pays off for sure. Absolutely pays off.
Definitely.
I mean, if you're not name dropping when you're knocking on doors about this neighbor let me in, or I just talked to James or Jeff or Jeremy or whomever, word of mouth, it certainly doesn't hurt.
You guys want to see how good I'm at name dropping? Watch this.
Yeah.
Hey, if you're just joining us, welcome to RELICS Radio. We're on with BuckleBoy. BuckleBoy out of Louisiana, right here on Relics Radio with Tony and myself. Pleasure to be talking with him. We're talking relics, we're talking finds, we're talking permissions. So if you're listening on the replay, we appreciate you being here. For those of you joining us in the live comment section, I want to welcome you to the chat tonight. Trent Nunley, good to see you. Get That Treasure wants to know, are there woolly boogers in Louisiana? BuckleBoy?
Woolly boogers.
Yeah.
There's rougarous. I mean, we've got our own mythical beast here, but I don't know what a woolly booger is, but I'm sure it's here. If it ever was here, it's here. It probably lives in the swamp.
Right.
Yeah,
I
you have a
think
lot
that
of creatures and critters there in Louisiana.
yeah, that was one of the topics in the chat. It says I want to hear some critter stories. What kind of nighttime creatures have you walked up on or come in contact with that would really surprise us out here in Colorado?
And not those drunks from Mardi Gras.
Well,
we're talking about the actual creatures and critters.
Yeah, unless you're in really flooded ground or around swampy areas, you're probably not going to run into a gator that often. And you can go out and kayak, on the swamps and so forth, and you just leave them alone and they'll leave you alone.
Sure.
People think that's scary, but that's just that's the way it is. They don't really want to go after something as big as you. But there's nutria and all kinds of birds, and you walk up on snakes fairly often. I mean, not so much in the fields, but if you're in any sort of grassy spot, there's going to be snakes. And those always kind of shock me, because it's always when I'm not expecting it. And then I'm also like, do I let this snake survive, or do I dispatch this snake? Because I know if I let it survive, then I'm going to run into it later when I don't expect it.
Yeah.
And it's always in the back of your head.
Yeah. Tough decision.
And of course the mosquitoes. I mean, the mosquitoes are awful. It's like you can't go out too early when it's nice and cool in the summertime, because you just get swarmed. And as soon as the sun starts to dip a little low, there they are again. Hundreds of them everywhere. And so I learned early on that you got to leave your vehicle windows rolled all the way up. Because if you forget and go back to your truck too late, then they just you got 50 of them in there, and they're biting you all the way home. So
oh man,
yeah, pretty wild.
I did that camping one time. I left this tent unzipped. When I came back, my tent was filled on the inside of them. It's going to be a terrible night. Go ahead, Tony. Sorry, I stepped on you a bit.
No, Trent Nunley just said, yeah, the mosquito, the state bird of Louisiana.
Is that the state bird? The mosquito?
That's about right.
That's about right.
Wow.
Actually, what I wanted to ask you, I mean, personally right here, how's the waterfall hunting? I've heard it's pretty good down in that area, right?
Yeah, the waterfall is great. The elevation changes, the hiking is excellent. I mean, you can hike all the way up on a bridge and see for miles. But yeah, there's not a lot of elevation change and not a lot of water that flows.
Sure. Yeah. Yep. It's good for ducks.
Yep.
So
yeah, you all had kind of said something earlier. You were talking about your seededs, and you said something like, you knew what they sounded like, and it allowed you to find more. It's interesting with the hobby that, a lot of this is experience, and not everything that's good sounds good.
Right.
People make that mistake. They think the best sounding things are going to be the best objects. The worst sounding things are going to be the trash, and it's just not true at all.
Yeah.
And so the best thing you can do is be willing to dig some holes. And it's strange, because I see a lot of the hobby is kind of moving towards keeping you from having to dig holes. It's like, this is iron, don't chase the iron, tune it out, tune this out, tune that out. And I'm like, I kind of have I'm cut of a different cloth than that. I'm like, if you're going to be out there, the only way that you're going to find the best things that you can ever find is to just be willing to dig holes. And I really think that, anybody that's not chasing at least a little iron is probably leaving a lot behind.
Agreed.
So,
If you're in an old area, kind of, I mean, essentially, I was thinking about this about the spot that Ken and I were at a couple weekends ago.
Especially here in Colorado. Yeah.
If you're in an old area and you're finding the old stuff, as far as I'm concerned, you need to dig everything out of there. I mean, we did not come across a lot of modern trash. There was some modern trash, there was some modern clad, but man, and it's like when you go to England, you're digging every tone that you have, regardless. I mean, you're not going to get that perfect 87. That's good both. I mean, that just doesn't happen. But if it's a tone, it's going to be old, and you should be digging it. I don't even care if it's trash from the 1500s. It's still from the 1500s, and
Right.
it's old. It's old. So
old bale steel is still cool. As
oh
anything.
my gosh, right?
Right.
Yeah, a bale steel is almost gold, right? It's like
right.
It's like right around the same range.
Right.
Yeah, and especially in an area where you're finding things that you don't even really know what they are because they're so old, and the Romans or the Vikings or the it's just like the Saxons. It's just like there's so much stuff out there that's possible to find. In addition to those things that are out there, there are millions and millions of types of things. There's all the things that have been like plow mangled, destroyed, fragments of things that are not going to sound like the thing that they once were. And then in addition to that, which is other millions of different tones, you've got all the ground conditions, the iron nails and the big iron and stuff that's near and above and underneath the things that you're trying to find. And then on top of that, things can be sideways in the ground. The orientation, coin on edge, an item upside down, turned every which way. So to be honest, like there's that humility and gratitude thing again. It's like everything we do is by the permission of other people, or most of what we do. Well, also, it's amazing we find anything. We're going to walk out into this vast space with a little bitty, 8-inch search coil, and we're hoping to find something. I mean, like that blows my mind. I'm shocked.
Isn't that crazy?
Anything,
Yeah, I think we're all in agreement on that, man.
We talk about that all the time when you're out standing in the middle of hundreds of acres, and all of a sudden you pull up a saddle, a rivet from leather. And you're like out in these hundreds of acres, and I found this small rivet. How does that happen?
Right.
Or a what are the caps from the percussion cap? The percussion caps. Forget about it.
Yep.
You find that in a field, and you're like, how? I must be doing something right. If you found that tiny little item.
Yeah, in the middle of this big wide world of ours, down to your coil, down to your state, down to your town, down to you, down to your coil, down to this little tiny $1 gold coin. You know what I mean? You're like, it's just been there for 150 years waiting for me to come along and find it in the middle of this.
It almost feels like it's meant to be. It's like
it's meant to be.
Yeah,
definitely connection to those types of finds.
Like an exercise in like mindfulness too, because it's like that little rivet. Since you brought up a rivet, like that rivet. Somebody bought that by the pound, had it mail ordered to them, or bought it from a hardware store in a brown bag, 100 pieces for however much. Took it home. It sat on a shelf until whatever leather item that was stitched together when it was brand new fell apart, and then they had to repair it. And so they literally took a leather punch, punched a hole, put the rivet through, put the washer, the burr on the other side, and then took a ball peen hammer after they snipped it, to snip it, to trim it close, and then they ball peen hammered the end of it to seal it. And I'm like, every bit of those, every little rivet, is like the amount of time it it represents, not even just the manufacturing of it, but just the usage of it. It's pretty wild. And you think about like how long did that repair last, and how good were those trace reins, or that leather saddle or whatever it was used on, and before it finally bit the dust and was tossed out. It's just amazing. It boggles the mind to think about these things.
I think about that with square nails as well. Every single one of them was handmade. And to me, it's such a personalized item. I mean, somebody was working on that. Then it was used to put up a house, for these people to survive out on the prairie in the middle of nowhere fighting Indians and all these other different things. And, some people are like, oh, just another square nail. I'm like, yeah, but how important was that square nail to the person living in the house out in the middle of nowhere? I love it.
Yeah, it's pretty amazing. It's amazing.
Yeah.
Did you know that there's a book on Louisiana nails? There's actually a book on Louisiana nails.
Which
I'm
shelf?
telling you, I
Which
own
shelf
it.
in your library is that one? I know you've got that.
Oh, it's on the nail shelf, right?
Yeah, the
Oh
nail
my
shelf.
gosh.
It's
Only
classified.
BuckleBoy, man.
It's in
Only
the ends.
BuckleBoy.
It's in the ends for nails.
Yep.
All right.
Yep. Historic Louisiana nails.
Oh my
Wow.
gosh.
Wow, that's awesome.
I remember
And
digging with
I don't know
Seven.
if I should feel
Go
really
ahead.
sad that I read that or really happy, but it's one of the two.
Oh man, that is awesome. Now at least I can say, hey, I know a guy that read an entire book on square nails. That's great.
And trunks.
Yeah, I remember Loy at Digging with Seven. Remember Tony? He used to do these little history clips during his detecting videos.
Yes.
If on a specific find, and he did one on square nails one time, and it was really cool. Like that's the first time I had ever learned about rosehead nails, and talking about the shape of the square nail could determine its age, and all kinds of cool. He just did a really quick little 2-minute history lesson, and I didn't know. I was like, okay, now BuckleBoy's telling us there's an entire book on just Louisiana nails.
Yeah, pretty wild. I mean, it's useful info because what are you going to find the most of on any spot? It's going to be nails, But also, you get some of those situations where like structures burn, and you get those nails that have been like carbonized so that they don't rust, and that's kind of neat to see because then you can really get a sense of how they were constructed.
Yeah. I was looking in the chat, and Ohio Relic Hunter said, Louisiana nails. It sounds like an 1800s serial killer. Did you hear the news report on Louisiana nails took out those 5 fishermen out of the...
Well, Valentine's Day, I said to my wife, I said, let's just sit down and we're going to eat some chocolates. I'm going to read you a chapter of Louisiana nails. She was fine with it.
She was out like a light, slept all night.
I don't know about that. I don't know about that. I don't know if she would be
across
out.
the room making a little heart shape right now. Like,
oh man! So I'll tell you what. I was lucky enough to be able to dig with BuckleBoy. He made his way out here to Colorado, and we were able to get together and do some detecting. And I think even the last time we had you on, we were chatting about your wife, and don't answer this if you don't want to. I think back then you kind of told the story, but wasn't there a special story about you and your wife? Now, a lot of people probably heard the story, but I don't know if everyone's heard it. And we've got a new audience these days. So, how would you feel about telling that story about the early days?
Yeah. So, we met, and one of the first things I did was say, let's go metal detecting. And she thought I was talking about a metal detector in an airport. And then, once I got her out, in the middle of nowhere, great first date, serial killer vibes.
Then, Louisiana nails showed up.
We hit it. Yeah, exactly. I was waxing philosophical and poetic about the nails. And she got her first silver coin. Not too long after that, it was a Morgan dollar. I kid you not. I was so jealous of it. I couldn't believe. She came up and said, "Is this a token?" And she opens her hand.
Never
it's a Morgan
seen it.
Dollar.
Right.
Did you drop to your knees and propose right there? It would have been
but the proposal did happen on a metal detecting trip. Yeah, and she actually proposed to me because I'd waited so long. She proposed to me. She took a brass wedding band that came from a Civil War soldiers camp that we had dug together, and she tied a string to it and put it in a Ziploc baggie with a note. And that was like the most romantic thing ever. And so we got married in a metal detecting themed wedding. And
oh my gosh.
The one regret that I have is that we did not have a couple of cheap metal detectors and a sandbox with coins in it for our guests, at the wedding reception.
Yeah.
That would have been the icing on the cake.
Yep. Like plan a bunch of stuff like all the party favors for them to find or something,
Yeah, exactly.
Oh,
yeah. We went on the honeymoon and privy dug and went on detecting trips and found a bunch of Civil War stuff, and
it's awesome.
so it's been great.
Man, you
Yep.
hear that? Everyone out there
Fantastic.
in Relics Radio land, you find a spouse that wants to go dig a privy on the honeymoon. You got to keep her. In my book, you got to keep her.
Oh yeah.
That's
Well
awesome.
done, Mrs. BuckleBoy. If you're listening in, well done. Well done. I always love that story, man. It's
Give me
one of
the
the few
thumbs
I've
up.
heard. Yeah, excellent. Thumbs up right back. Um, yeah, that's wonderful, man. It's so cool when you
Absolutely.
can share those kind of passions with people. I know that my friend Pat over at Amphibious Detecting and stuff. Um, I don't think his wife goes out with him detecting as much, but she has just as much fun throwing curveballs at him by like planting
Oh,
crappy
that's
metal
right.
plates and writing dork on him and throwing him in his favorite dive spots and everything. You'll go down there.
Yeah.
There'll be 100 aluminum plates with the word dork scratched on
Dork.
them right in his favorite spot. And she'll just go out there and toss him in the water just to tweak him a bit. You know what I mean? So whenever you have the support of your spouses in this hobby, it really adds to it. So well done, Mrs.
Agreed.
Buckleboy. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
that's great.
Pretty
Great
amazing.
proposal too, man.
Well,
That's
and
pretty amazing.
also, it's so nice in a marriage when no matter how bad things get, you can still go out and dig together. I mean,
Yeah,
no matter what stresses there are, you can still get out in the field and it all goes away. So
yeah. Do you find it very therapeutic? I've talked to a lot of people. I know I do. I've talked to Tony and I have talked to a lot of people here on this show and even at events and stuff. And do you find it very therapeutic?
it's completely opposite of everything else in my life, and it is a hobby of absence. It's being out by yourself and finding the things that the owners of the items are long dead and gone, and
Hmm.
I mean, it's really therapeutic, and there's something about just putting on the headphones and tuning the world out. It's like flatlining. It's like meditation, and then I really find that I find my best stuff when I'm just not really thinking about anything, not really wanting to find anything. If I get worked up and I'm like whipping around and where is the silver coin or where is the good Civil War relic or whatever, or I feel like I'm getting skunked, I might as well quit, right? Because I'm actually doing worse because I'm
Sure.
so worried about the things I shouldn't be worried about that I probably won't find as much. So I'm a big believer in the fact that you just have to. Um, my friends tell me that they think I conjure relics or something, but I really, I'm just open to it and
On
they
your
just
own.
appear, and
You're in
it's
tune.
kind of one of those things. Yeah.
Yeah. So you talked about it a little earlier about the mindfulness and being out there and stuff. And yeah, I agree. It's like, man, sometimes you feel like you will it into being sometimes. And maybe that's just the shock of, this big wide world down to you, down to your coil, and down to what you just found. And you have to justify it somehow. So you're like, I willed that into happening. But I get
Yeah.
it, man. I get it. Cause like you go out and you're focused on something. And you know what? It's not always like, I'm going to go out and find a seeded coin today. It's, I'm going to go out and find something cool today. And if you have that
Yeah.
attitude, that opens the world to you because even if you find like an old rusty coat, bottle top, you're like, you see that star on there? Like, what brand of beer did this come from? This is kind of cool. They quit making that beer in 1943 and blah, 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 and next thing you know, you're down the rabbit hole, reading about some beer company that used to produce that bottle cap. Yeah.
Yeah, that's one of the attractions is you're never going to see it all, and you could dig 100 years, you could dig 2 lifetimes, and never you're going to be surprised still every time. And I
Yeah.
think like I feel like I'm pretty good at identifying a lot of the stuff that's out there, and I spend a lot of time doing that for people online and trying to help folks out with relic IDs. But also there's a lot of times I'm just stumped, and a lot of times, really is unsettling to me when I find like the second or the third thing that's like whatever thing that I can't ID and couldn't ID the first time and couldn't ID the second time, and now I've got a third example, and it just really gets you, when you're trying to figure all these things out. And some of the things that I've found, it's taken me 20 years to be able to ID. So that's a process too, and it's not immediate. Just like cleaning something doesn't have to be immediate. It's like the relic's going to sit there, and unless it's iron, you've got time, you know. So, you know, people always think that they've got to immediately get it out there and immediately get it filmed and put it out there. You know, nobody knows when you dug whatever item. You just sit on it, clean it, you know, when you know how best to proceed. If it's super rare, don't rush into using a grinder on it, or, you know, soaking it in ammonia or vinegar or whatever else. You know, just take your time. You can only clean it once, you know, and so everything is a process, you know, working through cleaning all the finds, identifying everything. You know, it's all a process, and you just got to make time for all the parts of the process. It's like you got to make time for the research, the permission, the searching, the digging, the cleaning, the identification, you know, and the display. So
finding's just one part of it. You know what I mean? Like,
yep.
So you've been into IDing relics for quite a while. Like I would definitely consider you. I don't know. You find a lot of coins too, man. Do you think finding relics thrills you more than finding a coin, or is it all equal to you?
I'm really jazzed up about the relics anymore. I mean, the coins are all like variations on a theme, and unless you find a coin that's like made into a cufflink or has multiple holes for being turned into a button, or is engraved into a love token, or, you know, I mean, there's some ways that you know, coins can be interesting, and of course coins have value, and they still have value, and that's one of the attractions for that. But to me, you know, the coins are limited. Like, there's only so many types of coins you're going to ever hope to find, and eventually you're going to find most of the various kinds that are on your bucket list if you do this long enough. The only way that you're not going to find those things is to just stop digging and, you know, say give up, basically. So, you know, my mantra is basically just keep digging, and you're going to find what you would hope to find. You know, it may take decades, but, you know, the only way you're going to fail is to not do it. But, you know, back to the coins versus relics, you know, the amount of relics on the ground is infinite. I mean, it's like, you know, I can see a coin and I know what it is usually, or I have to look it up, or I can find it pretty easily. But, you know, with relics, it's like you can search, as I said, for decades and eventually figure it out. But you're always surprised. There's always something cool, and I'm really jazzed up by that variety of stuff. You know, that's something that the coins don't really do for me. But yeah, of course, I love finding coins too. But yeah.
I agree.
I know on your Facebook page, which you'll find the links to right down below in the description of this podcast description, but you can also see them in the comment section. Tony's going to throw them up there. We have links to both BuckleBoy metal detecting on YouTube, where you can go check out videos of a lot of his finds. How long you been on YouTube, BuckleBoy?
I've been on there a long time, longer than my measly following would indicate. But I want to say like 2008 or something crazy.
That's early.
But I didn't put out regular material in the early days. I just didn't have the equipment to do that. So I took a lot of still photos, and we didn't do a lot of video work. So I think in the last maybe 2 years or so, I've tried to do weekly videos. I've got about 175 episodes or so that are out. I bring them out every Friday, so people can catch them then.
Yeah, it's like eye candy for me. Right, Tony. I think Tony and I are always messing each other. It's like, do you see what BuckleBoy just posted? I'm like, what? Oh my gosh, yeah, some great stuff. Just fantastic, because like we know the effort it took to find the item, then to ID the item, then to clean the item. You know what I mean? And oh man, some of that stuff is so cool. And for somebody that's living in Colorado, when you're in Louisiana and we don't know what you find there, well, we kind of do, because you show it. You know what I mean? You show it on your YouTube channel and on your Facebook post, and that's what's great about sharing. I know a lot of people don't really like social media so much, right? And I know it can get out of hand sometimes, and it can get wrapped up in it. But for stuff like that, I just think it's fantastic, because now I kind of know some of the cool things that BuckleBoy has found in the Louisiana area. Yeah, I love military relics, man. I'm telling you what, you showed a picture of that Civil War, what do they call it? A guidon tip, that flag topper. What do they call it?
Yep. Yeah, the guide on tip. Yeah.
Guide on.
Yeah,
Okay.
that blew me away. Yeah, that blew me away. I just,
Is there?
wow.
Tell me
What can
about
you
that.
tell us?
People might not.
Yeah,
Yeah,
tell us
people might
about
not
it.
know what that
What?
is.
Yeah, so these the flag toppers were on the of course the U.S. flag and the regimental flag, that went with Civil War units, and that topper was a federal issued item that came to Louisiana, during the various incursions into the state by the North, and it's basically spear shaped, and it went right on the top of the flag. And I think it's such an amazing relic. I've never found one until this, about a month ago, and it there was so much um, interest in the colors, and so much honor in bearing the colors and carrying the colors and not letting the colors touch the ground. And these were they were a point of reference for the troops as they marched and charged. That the color bearer was there at the head of the charge, and regardless of where you were, you could still see what direction people were moving because of the flags. So just in terms of battlefield communication and being able to see where your various troops were, if you were watching, as from afar, overseeing the whole battle plan, or whether you were down in the thick of things, to be able to see through the smoke and see where the flag was and where your men were headed, and go with them. I mean, it blows the mind, and it blows the mind to think that a relic like that would have gotten dropped or lost or discarded, probably lost. And so I just think that probably not too many of those get found. I have found a fair number, as my name would indicate, fair number of Civil War buckles and plates over the years, over the past 3 decades, but I've only found one of those. So that just goes to show.
Pretty amazing. I mean, if you guys want to feast your eyes on some incredible finds, and it's just, some of them clean, some of them in situ, you just kind of head on over there to BuckleBoy LA's Facebook page. We'll go ahead and put that link up. You can find it right down below. But yeah, I remember seeing that, just going, wow, that's one of those finds where you're like, man, was I meant to find this? Because it's just an incredible find. But if you're not digging iron, you know what I mean? You're not digging large, odd sounding targets. I mean, Tony and I, when we get on a new site, especially here in Colorado, some landowner would be like, "Yeah, go ahead. Here's 300 acres. There was a house out there somewhere." I mean, that's what we go looking for, right? We go looking for the iron, so we can locate the site. We start looking for brick. We start looking for tile, china and all that, and glass, and then listening for the iron. And I know sometimes in a new site, I've been guilty of this. Like, I'll identify what kind of square nails are around and what they sound like and what they're coming in at. And they're usually pretty, like, one or two numbers, pretty solid. You get a pretty good idea that's a square nail, what you're hearing. But boy, you get an iron signal that's like jumpy or bouncing around. I just, those are always interesting. Or, if there are a few numbers above where the square nails are coming in, those are always interesting iron items for me. Like, that's why we've dug, like, pistol cylinders, revolver cylinders,
Right.
and different stuff like that,
Yep.
where you're just like, man, I'm glad I dug that.
How about
Yep.
my
And
cavalry
it's
hammer?
interesting.
Yeah.
I mean,
Oh,
Did
that's
you see
wow.
that, BuckleBoy? Did you happen to
Oh,
see that?
yeah. Oh yeah, that's a great find.
Yeah.
Wow.
Artillery hammer,
You
cavalry
know,
artillery hammer.
it's
Yeah, the
interesting.
artillery hammer.
This is a tip that I can share that probably your listeners won't enjoy, but one of the things that I do that I attribute some of the success to is I clear iron, and I'm not talking about clearing every nail. I'm talking about clearing big iron, and I haul it away. I mean, I don't want to leave it on a site. I don't want a farmer to see it. I don't want a hunter to see it up against a tree. When I'm digging, I clear it, and it means some really uncomfortable backpacks out of wooded areas. It means buckets of things in the back of the truck. 400 pounds of iron, coming home with me to be disposed of. And this is, everybody says that their detector is the best thing, and that it can see through iron. But if you've got an axe head and underneath it is a coin, then you're not going to hear the coin. If it's above the axe head, you're probably still not going to hear the coin. I mean, I don't know of any detector made that was going to do that. So, the only way that you can actually get through some of this is to clear the iron, because it's going to make a cleaner sight for you to be able to hear more stuff as you grid. And then the other thing I would say is, everybody says, oh, well, all the good sites are done. The good sites are never going to be done.
No.
Because I've learned enough about how this works from a place where they still plow every so many years. Most of the country, they don't plow. They just no-till, and they just spray it and kill it, and then they sow the new seeds or plant the new beans or whatever, and or corn or whatever, and they don't even till. And so every plow, you can find about 2/3 as much. And so this tells me that how much are we leaving behind if we're in a place that was ever plowed, okay, that was ever plowed in 150 years or 200 years or 300 years or whatever. How much are you leaving behind if every time you're finding 2/3 as much, then 2/3 and 2/3 and 2/3 and 2/3, and you think, well, how much did I get the first time?
Yeah.
10%, 20%, maybe, if. And so, the real future of this hobby, I think, is going to be people paying farmers to plow their land in places where there are sites that were no-tilled. So, one of these days, people will say, oh, it's all gone. There's nothing left. But the people who are paying their farmers to plow, or the farmers are nice enough to plow it for them still, that's where the finds are going to be. It's pretty amazing.
Yeah, it is. I hadn't even thought about that. That's actually a great idea.
England's like that.
England's like that. Yeah, England.
Oh my gosh.
BuckleBoy, send $10 to P.O. Box. $10
please
a tip.
Support my YouTube channel. If you found anything by using my tips and techniques, please support my YouTube channel. Buy me a coffee. It's $5 a month.
There you go. $5 a month.
Support a detectorist.
But Tony was just saying England's like that. You know what I mean? Like, I can't believe people in England even say, or people in America actually that hear about detecting in England, and they'll kind of like try to put the bunk on, oh, those fields are all hunted out, and I'm not going to pay that kind of money to go over there. And it's like, not only do they till over there, but they deep till, they deep plow, and they're always turning that stuff up. They till and roll it, and they're planting a lot of potatoes over there, so they go really deep, and they're just continually turning stuff up like a beach almost, not like a beach, but you know what I mean? Like, and the history's thousands of years old. So,
well, we have friends that have gone on these same trips to these same fields over and over, and they can tell you, over in this field I found a such and such coin. They go right back over that site and they find more coins over there, half a year later, a year later, in the exact same fields that they were in before. I mean, I can remember our first day that we were in England, Ken and I, almost a year ago. The first field that we went into, I thought we cleaned it out. I mean, my first good target was a hammered silver, and I thought we cleaned it out. We went back 5 days later, and we found Roman silver. I mean,
all kinds of stuff. Yeah,
all kinds of stuff. 5 days later, even after it hadn't been plowed again. I mean, it's insane how things come up over in that area.
Part of it too is that, and this struck me when I visited Rome, when I was younger. But if you ever in Rome, the Roman Forum and everything is down like a story and a half below the street level.
Sure.
And it's because everything, all of the silt and everything, leaves turning to dirt, and all of this, just builds up layers and layers. Well, you think about the amount of stuff and how deep that stuff is, in places that have Iron Age history and Bronze Age history and Roman history, that's deeper layers than we would ever have here. So there's an added benefit to deep plowing over there that we probably wouldn't even think about. There's stuff I'm sure that's out of the reach of the deepest plow.
Oh, absolutely. That wouldn't surprise me at all. Just the length of history, everything builds up on top of it. Absolutely.
And
Well,
that's what's crazy is because you can find modern, what they consider modern, which is like 1700s, and then you can find, they're sitting on top of a 2,000-year-old Celtic gold stater, and it's like that much separation, and you can't even fathom that many years ago. Like you can't. It's hard to fathom 2,000 years ago, as far as like what that coin was doing there, what it represented, where it was made, why it was made, what kind of traveling it must have seen. You know what I mean? Like to arrive there, it just boggles the mind. Go ahead, Tony. I'm sorry, you were going to say something.
no, I was just going to bring up, kind of moving to a new topic here, but I definitely have heard you referred to as the master of eyeballing finds. I tell you, you are like either an eagle eye or the luckiest son of a gun in the world. But how do you find? And I love seeing it because you post it on Facebook. Hey, right on the surface, and there's a seed. It's sitting right there. How does that work out for you?
How do you do that?
You
Yeah.
know, it's interesting. There are people I think who think that it's easy here, and I think that there are some people that think that it's like not real or whatever. But
Yeah.
in situations where Native American artifact hunters find things on the surface
Yeah,
by going out
they
and
have
walking
to.
fields. And so there's no other way to find that stuff, with it with any sort of instrument. And so this is the same sort of thing that I'm doing here. And you just have to know what types of sites you want to do that in. And to be honest, a lot of the times when I do that, it's sites that I wouldn't really want to spend my time digging. I mean, there would be spots from like the 30s, 40s, 50s, and there's some of those types of spots here. Now, when I find something old, like if I eyeball flat buttons or eyeball a seeded coin or something, then you bet the detector's coming out.
Sure.
But a lot of times I just don't want to waste the time out digging aluminum cans and bleach caps and jar lids and things like that, because there's so many other older spots to dig that I don't know that I would really want to especially in the heat. I would just rather go through an eyeball, because without saying more, there's times when you can do that and there's times when you can't. And
Right.
Knowing the difference, knowing when you need to be out there, and sooner or later you're going to find a lot of stuff. Are you going to find as much stuff as you would find with a metal detector? Actually, yes, or more, because you're thinking about the stuff that you're covering. You're covering a lot more ground because you're not digging one hole every 6 inches to get a bleach cap lid. So, I could maybe do, 100 feet in a certain amount of time, or I could do, 10 times that by slowly walking through and just picking up stuff off the surface. So I think it's, people that see this are probably like amazed at it, but I think there's several factors that are unique to this area of the world, this state, and the farming that goes on here, the type of farming that goes on, and the farming schedules that allow that type of stuff to happen. And then you just want to be in a spot where you could eyeball almost anything, because even when I'm waving a detector, I'm eyeballing.
Sure.
So and some of my iron finds have been eyeballed finds, and some of them have been dug finds from clearing iron. But like, for example, this last week, I dug 2 guns, and they were, both iron finds, and so that's pretty unusual. And they spanned a distance in time of, I guess, about 100 years between the two. So you just never know what you're going to see or what you're going to walk up on. It's pretty amazing.
Yeah. Have you ever found a Spanish real?
I don't know
What's
what
that
feeling is like. I've not dug 100 of them. I really
Okay.
haven't. So
Okay, all right.
Yeah. Is this Dave asking this question? David
Tony.
Rose-headed nail.
There you go. Actually, Tony and I share a Google's doc sheet between each other, and we chat throughout the show and write down topics and questions and kind of ideas and stuff. And we both were laughing about that because, we're talking about and we're poking fun at you, man, 100%. I know it's a lot of work, but
Oh, I know.
it was like, oh, you find reals like we find Wheaties, or out here, and
the Louisiana Wheatie.
Yeah, right.
It's a Spanish
Yeah,
real.
I find a lot of Wheaties too, but unless I'm eyeballing them, I don't think it's good luck to film a Wheatie coming out normally. But if I'm eyeballing it, I'm like, hey, I got a coin. Any
Right.
coin eyeballing is fine. But
yeah.
I found I guess about 2/3 of the old coins that I find are seeded, and probably a third or a little under a third is probably Spanish. Those are the main two. I don't get very many barber coins, but I think it's because I don't go after those types of sites. I think if I was going after the late 1800 stuff, I think in early 1900 stuff, I would find more of those.
Yeah. Hey, you want to start talking about some finds? Tony and I have some finds to ask you about.
Yeah.
And you can kind of tell us the story and a little bit about them. First thing I want to ask you about is, because this is the first time I've ever seen it. And I used it on one of my weekly dirt shows here just a little while ago. You found a quarter real. I don't know if I've ever seen a quarter real until I saw it on your channel, on your,
so that
pretty
was my
amazing.
buddy's find. Yeah. Yep. That was my buddy's find. I had never seen that before, and I was kind of late getting there, and he came up and was like, I found this weird coin, and I'm just looking at it going, is it a coin? I mean, they didn't even have a date on it. It was just like, it had I knew it was Spanish, but it was like it had the lion on one side and the castle on the other for Castile and Leon, so I knew it was some sort of colonial era thing. But yeah, it's called a Cortillo. It's a quarter real, and it was made in Colombia in the late 1700s or so. Pretty wild. And the condition on this
pretty
thing
wild.
is just like tiny. Wow. Yeah, it's like smaller than a half dime.
Oh, was it?
So,
like
wild.
And how does that compare to a trime? Like, is trime smaller than a half dime? They're pretty similar, I think.
Yeah, I think they're pretty similar, but just more thin for the trime.
Yeah.
Maybe a millimeter or two different, but this thing was just like minuscule. It was like a little miniature portrait or something. I was like, didn't even look like a coin because it didn't have any words, didn't have any legends, didn't have a date. Just had two graphics, a lion, a rampant lion, and a castle tower turret.
Oh,
so
yeah, amazing.
I had just found one on a world NGC, I don't know, coin site, and it does have a date on it. So this must not be the one that you had found. Do you have an estimation of the age of the one that you found by chance?
I think, yeah, it's my buddy's find. I think they are probably late 1700s. Yeah.
Okay.
And they're Colombian. If you go with Cortillo, Cuartillo, and if you look under Colombian Cortillo or something like that, then you should probably find a similar one. But they're not common. I mean,
here we go.
I was way out of my element.
Wow.
Yeah, and had never seen that before.
Yeah, and this says the Colombian one, 1796 to 1808, quarter real. Wow. Weight, 0.85 grams, not even a full gram.
Wow.
Amazing. Yeah. Amazing.
Tiny. Does it give the diameter of those?
Let's see, 11.5 millimeters.
So smaller than a $1 gold coin, which is, I think it's 12.2 millimeters. Right?
Wow. Wow, craziness. What a unique find. And I think, a lot of us who love history, you would find something like that, and then all of a sudden, I know Ken talks about it all the time, going down the rabbit hole. Now you get to not only start to clean it and preserve it, but now you got to figure out what it was, something you've never seen before. You didn't know what it was, and all of a sudden, you're holding this item that, you can sit there and say, yeah, I know exactly what that is the next time you see it. Crazy.
Yeah, and it's like it's like, what journey did it take to get there?
Sure.
It's always one of those things too. And part of this is, people don't think about this much, but people say, oh, I've got a site that dates to 1840 because I found an 1840 coin. But I'm like, well, what's the denomination of that coin?
Right.
What's the wear on that coin? Because, it's like, people will find a cap bust $50. I've never found one, but some people do up north. And so people find a cap bust half, and they're gorgeous condition. And I'm like, well, those coins didn't hardly ever circulate because people didn't just have a $50 in their pocket. So they very rarely circulate. So they wore very slowly because they weren't used day to day. What wore the most? All the slick coppers. Those are what everybody had in their pockets every day. And occasionally a silver that was really worn, with like a small denomination silver, like a half real or something. And so the smaller the denomination, the more wear happens. The larger the denomination, the less wear happens. And then, of course, you're looking at the wear going, how much wear is that versus when it was lost? And I think the archaeologists think about that. But I started like going down the rabbit hole on these types of things. And the wear on that coin was like hardly at all. So it's like it was definitely lost in the 1700s or very first years of the 1800s.
Yeah.
So it's pretty amazing.
Incredible.
All right. What do we got next? We got a whole list of these items here that we wanted to chat with you about. What's up next?
Go ahead.
You found a I think it was a pistol bullet, like a 44, and then a round ball mold. You found this mold. Or it looks like a round ball and maybe a pistol, like a combination projectile mold.
Yeah, that was a Colt de Grun mold, and it was from the pocket revolver, and it was model 1849. And so those molds were stamped Colt's patent. A lot of them were, and I've been really lucky. A lot of the brass molds that you find, if you're lucky enough to find a bullet mold, are not stamped. And I've dug two, and both of them were stamped. And both of them, the first one I found both sides because they were fused together because the iron pin had rusted. And that was for an Adams patent revolver. And the second one was I found half of this one, and I found just enough to be able to see CO of Colt's patent and PA of patent. And so I knew what I had. And then like 6 months later in the same field, of course, the other part turned up. So I was able to reunite those. Yeah. So that's been like incredible good fortune. Mm-hmm. And part of the importance of like IDing all these relics is that the relics are all out there. I mean, people will say, you're never going to find the other part of that, the other half of that or whatever. But if it's a site that hasn't been hunted much, or if you've been the main person to hunt it, then it's there. It may be below your detection range because it's been at plow bottom depth for 100 years, but it's there, and or the fragments of it are there. So it's important to ID things. And even as careful as I am, I've tossed out good finds in the past because I didn't know what they were, or I didn't find the piece that would have allowed me to think, oh, well, the rest of that's out there and this is what it looks like. Even with that flag topper, the other piece of that flag topper that was screwed down into went on the tip of the pole, and it almost looks like a water hose spigot. To the uninitiated. It doesn't have the washer inside. It doesn't rotate and so forth, but it has those notches, like those grooves, like reeded edge on there, like ferrules basically. And it looks kind of like a water hose spigot, that kind of got that vibe for it with a little narrow hole that was threaded where that guidon tip would have screwed down in. So, even just, that type of thing, if I'd found that first, I would have been like, oh, that's just a sprayer it's a hose nozzle from an industrial sprayer or a, crop spraying machine or something, and it probably would have thrown it away. So it's amazing, there's a lot of luck involved in this still, even to be careful about what you find and to try to ID it all.
Can you imagine finding that now, after the fact you found the top to it and then finding the base and marrying them back together like they were 160 years ago. What is that? To me just blows my mind, and to me that's emotional. Do you kind of get that same feeling of that type of find?
I get that same feeling, and I found belt plates where they're pieces because it's a plowed field,
Yeah.
and so I pieced back together belt plates, or I found the belt plate and then I found the keeper for the sword belt plate, and I got to put them back together for the first time, and those things give you goosebumps every time.
Yeah.
Anytime you reunite a relic, it gives you goosebumps.
Agreed. Yep, you're our kind of guy, I tell you.
Yeah, right. Like-minded individuals. Absolutely. He's one of
Right?
us. That's for sure.
Hey, now I know, this week we've been contacting each other and kind of prepping for the show and stuff like that. I asked you to send me some pictures that we can include, like on the, the podcast advertisement. You sent a picture of a boot gun barrel that was just like massive. Tell the listeners exactly what you had found there, because this blew my mind.
Yeah, that is like a 60 caliber boot pistol. It's the largest thing I've ever seen. I had to measure it. I wonder if my digital caliper was malfunctioning. I mean, the hole looks big on the end, but I had to measure it several times. I thought, well, maybe I accidentally measured the outside of it instead of the inside of the bore, but it was right. It was like 60 caliber. This hand cannon, for lack of a better word.
Hand cannon.
And I'm just thinking,
love it.
how would you be able to fire that thing? It would have been dangerous as all hell. But yeah, it's a piece of a Belgian-made boot pistol. The barrel part, a lot of people don't realize that there are usually at least two parts for those brass-framed pistols, if not three. So often you have the top plate, which is where the hammer would have come up through. The hammer would have been iron. And then you have the barrel itself, which would have been part of the bottom of it and one side. And then there's a side piece. Now, the side piece often had decorations of various sorts, engraving or a maker's name, or usually just an engraved design. And so you can actually piece those back together. But I think a lot of people don't know. More people know, I think, what the top part is, the top plate. But I think very few people actually identify the side plate for those. And so I think there's a lot of junk boxes that have the other pieces that people could reunite with their great relic, that they're just sitting there in a junk box or have already been tossed out because people don't know what they are. But I found all three pieces over the course of about 8 years in one of these fields for a different boot pistol, and I was able to reunite it. And so on my Instagram, I've got a little video short of reuniting that for the first time. After
Amazing.
8 years of searching and finding the three pieces, 3 different years.
Wow.
Incredible.
Hey, you have a coin on your Facebook page that I don't know what it is, and people could probably yell at me for this because I don't know what it is, but you have a silver coin. I think it's at 1826, the one I saw. You got a couple of them actually. What's the coin that's got like the beanie cap with the sun rays coming out around it?
Okay, that's a cap and raise coin. So that's a Mexican Republic real of some sort.
So it is a real.
So those date after Mexico became its own republic. And so the cap and raise design replaced the King Carlos design that had the coat of arms of Spain on one side and Charles 1, 2, 3, or whoever, or Ferdinand or whoever happened to be king. And so it replaced those types of design, the milled Spanish design. And so the cap and raise actually has a Mexican design, which is on one side, the Liberty cap, which is like a symbol of, freedom of thought. It was used in the French Revolution. It was used in Mexico. It was used in the United States. Why you have a Liberty cap Phrygian cap. And so there's rays emanating out behind it. And then on the other side was a symbol of Mexico, which is the eagle landing in the center of the lake in Mexico City, with the snake in its mouth, or on the prickly pear or whatever, which was the symbol, I think if I recall correctly, of the ancient Aztecs to build the city there, that they built that eventually became Mexico City. So pretty amazing. It was built on the water because they saw the sign of the eagle landing, and they interpreted that as that was the place to build the city. And so they built it. I actually drained a bunch of the lakes and moved and hauled dirt and built it. This is why Mexico City is actually sinking now pretty dramatically. It's because it's built on a lake.
Wow.
Pretty wild.
Pretty wild. Absolutely wild.
Yeah. I mean, you just described that coin. I'm looking at it on a pneumatic site, numismatic. And I mean, you nailed it. The prickly pear, the eagle. I mean, it's just an incredible coin. But again, if I would have found that thing, going down the rabbit hole, because what an incredible piece of history.
Man, I'm sitting here listening to BuckleBoy talk. You know a lot about relics, man. You know a lot about relics. You should like write a book or something. Like it's you know a lot about relics, man.
Share that knowledge.
Well, every relic that you go down the rabbit hole on, once you see it, once you know that it's there, it's kind of like that scratchy signal that you're like, should I dig it? And it ends up being something good. And you're like, I'm digging every scratchy signal. Once you know it's there, it enables you to find more. This is why I wrote an article years ago called The Curse of the First, which was about the fact that you never find the first thing. And then finally you find the first thing and then you find like 5 more immediately because you've broken the seal or whatever. But in this case, you once you realize that something's there, then it enables you to find more of it. And it also changes you as a person because you've gone down the rabbit hole. And so now you know that these types of things exist. Well, what other types of things that relate to that thing exist and so forth. And so, I am working on a book currently. It's in layout phase with Graybird Publishing, that's Butch Holcomb. And that's who's published. I think the last books were the book about relics of the southern. What was it? Charlie Harris's last book, and then before that, Bill Dancy's books on Virginia relics. And so that's Butch Holcomb and American Digger magazine. So that is due out. Gosh, whenever we finish the layout, it's turned into a project. The hope is that this book is going to ID the vast majority of what's dug in the United States, at least in terms of types and kinds of things. And it's got, almost 1,500 pictures in it and a lot of good information. And so the hope is that people will be able to ID the vast majority of what's dug that dates, from around 1700 up to, almost World War II.
Wow.
And if it's not in there specifically, then at least they can see what it looks like or looks similar to. And then there's all the search terms are in italics, because the problem now is that you try to Google search anything and you can't find anything because there's too much information. Like if you Google ladies buckle, then you're not going to find something from the Victorian era, which is what you dug. You're going to find something from eBay that was made yesterday, and 1,000 of them, 1,000 hits of 1 million finds. But it's like hardest thing is to figure out. You almost have to know what you're searching for in order to know how to search.
Yeah.
And so this book is going to have all those terms in italics, so people can go down their own rabbit holes and learn all this stuff and learn even more than what's in the book.
Are you going to release the audiobook version?
Yeah, well, I think we're doing that right now on
not
RELICS
that.
Radio.
That's it. We want you to come on and do a
gosh.
read for us next time when that book comes out. No, seriously.
Do a read for us.
Seriously, though, man, when if that comes to fruition and you get that together, and be sure to come back and visit us, and we'll definitely help you get the word out on that, because that's going to be a valuable book for many relic hunters out there. I know I'm definitely will grab a copy of that, because I just think it would be amazing to have something like that as a reference guide. Yeah.
Yeah, we don't really have anything like that in the U.S. And just in the last maybe 5 years or so, there's a series of books that came out called Finds Identified in the U.K. And so Volume 1 and Volume 2, and I just ordered Volume 1 just because I'm curious to see what's in there and how things are categorized. But it's the antiquity scheme that and researchers and so forth that have put this out to help metal detector hobbyists understand what they found and what it means and how to identify it. So I think we're overdue here in the United States for a similar book. But it has definitely been a massive amount of work to go after the types of finds that I had no idea about, and just say, so bridle bosses, what do I know about bridle bosses or horse bits or, trace reins, it's just like going down the rabbit hole on dates and time periods and attributes of China doll arms and legs. And, so all of that type of stuff is in there. And it's definitely been 2 years of hard work, but I'm glad to see it's going to pay off.
Yeah. Sounds amazing. I know, like, Tony and I love talking with other relic hunters and, people in our club and stuff. Like it's gonna be a very popular book, I think, amongst detectorists in the U.S. too. So I'm rooting for you, man, and can't wait to see the final product for sure.
Yeah, appreciate it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Hey,
so
we're starting to wind down here, and we appreciate your time you've given us this tonight. I wanted to kind of ask one last question. Over your 30 some years of being out there, you've pretty much found darn near everything, to be honest. What's left on your bucket list, honestly? Something that's eluded you for this long that, just at the top.
I want a gold coin. And I'm talking to two guys here who have dug a gold coin, but I want a gold coin, and it's not for lack of trying, and it's not for lack of time spent. But when you got something that's so rare and scarce, I look around at the relics that I found, and I think, I found things that are rarer than that should be to find. Spanish colonial relics and amazing tokens and coins, and I just look at that and I'm thinking, well, sooner or later it's going to happen. You just have to keep digging, and you're going to find eventually, hopefully, what you want to find. But that's something that's eluded me for all this time. And I'm thinking, like, I moved here to Louisiana, and I'm thinking I'm in a great place. I'm in a perfect place to find that. It's still not happened. But one
and
day,
that surprises me.
Day.
Yeah.
I think it's in your future for sure. And like you said, not for lack of trying. You're on the sites with that age that you can find that type of relic, and I have no doubt you'll get on that. You'll be rewarded.
And I don't, it can be however it happens. I mean, I would be equally pleased to eyeball it as dig it, however gold happens to fall from the sky, that's fine, I'm not going to discriminate because it was eyeballed. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
There you go.
Hey, BuckleBoy, you ready for a lightning round?
Yeah, sure.
All right. I'm just going to shoot these off. I don't have time for a lot of story around these, but I just want to hear what your answers are. Favorite relic? Things you've found.
Favorite relic ever that I've found. Planter's Bank token.
Planter's Bank token. All right, got to hear a little story on that.
About 150 known. This was the coin that was responsible for keeping the United States quarter as a denomination when they stopped minting them right after the War of 1812.
So not got to go down the rabbit hole on that.
I know. I just pulled it up.
History. Yeah.
Yep. We go down the rabbit hole. Why we do the podcast? It's pretty funny.
And I've found two of those. I've found two. At lightning struck twice. I don't know how in the world I found two. Most people never find one.
Jeez. Okay. So. Best military button or favorite?
Oh, best military button. Oh gosh. I've seen better military buttons dug by my friends than I've dug. I've witnessed a Voltigeurs button dug, and I've witnessed a Texas Navy button dug. But I did not dig either one of those, so I'm just going to say an eagle button.
Favorite coin?
Favorite coin. I love the 3-cent silver. I love that design. Look at it, and you know what it is, and it's so artistically done, and it's just cool.
Yeah. Favorite token?
Favorite token. I actually like the turn of the century malt tokens from the South, where prohibition meant that you couldn't brew or you couldn't buy alcohol, but you could brew it. So they sold malt, and you could buy, and there were tokens issued that you could get a reduced price on Puritan malt and other things out of New Orleans.
Man,
Okay.
that's so cool. Perfect. Well, hey, we're out of time. We'll give you kind of a last say, and if you hang on until after we close the show off, we'll say our goodbyes off the air. But Tony and I want to give you an opportunity to kind of address the Relics Radio podcast listening audience, and then we'll go ahead and Tony and I say our goodbyes, and we'll get out of here. So go ahead, BuckleBoy. The floor is all yours.
Well, all I can say is no matter what, don't get discouraged about what you're finding or not finding. Just stay at it. Keep doing your research, keep digging holes, and don't be afraid to talk to people, to find out information, and to dig holes in the ground. So no matter what, keep at it, keep digging.
Perfect. Love that. Tony, how about you, bud?
It's so much positive coming over here in the chat. Great show, incredible knowledge. Just lots of positive comments over here. So just want to thank BuckleBoy for coming on, filling our time. My gosh, we've gone 90 minutes, and we could go three
hours.
more 90 minutes. Yeah,
hours
with
and
the
hours.
information. And so I appreciate your time. It's been great speaking with you. I think we're scratching the surface. We will have you back on. Let's schedule it for about a year from today. That your book should be out by then, and we'll have you back on to do the audio version with us.
Yeah.
Yeah, thanks so much, folks. Appreciate it.
Awesome. If you guys are interested in seeing any of my content, you can head over to YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, put in 5280 Adventures, or just put it in the Google. You'll find me over there. Come check out my videos, digging in Colorado here, as well as our live. I post the Relics Radio video feed of tonight's podcast. So go over and check that out as well. And appreciate talking with everybody over on social media. Just love interacting. So come over and look me up and throw some comments at me.
Yep. You can find me at Adventures in Dirt anywhere on social media. I have a YouTube channel where I put out the weekly dirt every Sunday, where I feature what everyone else is finding, kind of things that they found that I find notable. I'll show them to you every week on the weekly dirt at Adventures in Dirt. So come check out that YouTube channel and look for BuckleBoy's book coming out. It's actually titled Everything in this book Ken King Has Never Found. That's what he's going to title the book. He kind of told me that's what he's going to title. It's like something like that, like Things Ken King Has Never Found, or something like that. I think,
or will ever find.
Will ever find. Right. But no, hey guys, thanks for listening to Relics Radio. We sure enjoy putting the show on here for you every Thursday night, 8 p.m. Eastern, and we'd love to see you next Thursday. And tell a friend if they've never heard of Relics Radio, have them come along and take a listen. We enjoy doing it. We enjoy that you appreciate it. So we appreciate you being here. Thanks a lot. See you next Thursday. Tony, hope to see you this weekend. Do some digging.
Ooh,
we're on that hot spot. I'm ready too. Let's go get it. Good night, everyone. See you next Thursday. And I have to push the button because I'm a professional. See ya.